Cavosa Excavating is a family-owned and operated company specializing in the installation of Title V septic systems. Cavosa Excavating is one of the largest septic system installers on Cape Cod. Whether it's upgrading your current system or installing a whole new system, Cavosa Excavating can do the job. Cavosa Excavating, 508-563-5530.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
Good evening and welcome to the May 21st meeting of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen, and I invite you to rise and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you who have cell phones, I ask you to either put them on vibrate or turn them off. That would be very nice and helpful. If you wish to record the meeting, you may certainly do so, but you should notify the chair that you're planning to record it on your own. And hearing no response, I assume no one's doing that, so we can proceed with our agenda. The first item on our agenda tonight is the reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. We do this annually, each year, after the election, which we just had last week. And so as we begin to do that, I want to welcome our newest member, Doug Jones. Doug, welcome to the Board of Selectmen. We're very happy to have
you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and so I just want to say about reorganization. I have been on the board 14 years out of the last 20 years, so, that's kind of a long time. So I have a bit of a history with reorganization, and I must say that Falmouth really stands out in its ability each year to choose new leadership, because it's important oftentimes to have new leadership. There have been times in the past when that hasn't occurred, but I would say, at least in my time, it only happened once or twice, and usually it was for a very good reason. So I think each member of the board comes here with a good heart and with all the intentions of serving the community to the best of their ability. And each year, if people choose to put their names forward to be elected as officers of the board, that is a good thing. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So I would entertain nominations for Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Madam Chair, before we do nominations, I would like to address one thing. if I
Surely.
may. This is addressed to the many people who have called me, come to my home, and come up to me on the street, realizing it's really, to my first term, it's my third year, and generally past practice has been that the chairman has been picked from someone who's in their third year. However, I felt strongly that I can serve the public, my constituents, if you want to call them, in a better manner if I remain in the position I am in now. So if you do not see my name nominated, that is why. It was my choice, but I want to thank you so much for your confidence. Maybe years down the road it'll be different, but for now, it was my choice.
Right.
Thank you.
You, David, for your comments. So are there any nominations for Chairman of the Board?
Madam Chair, I nominate Kevin Murphy for Chairman.
Are there any other nominations for Chairman? Hearing none, a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So now the vote will come on Kevin Murphy for Chairman of the Board for this upcoming year. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, 5 in favor, unanimous. Congratulations,
Thank
Kevin.
you very much.
Now I will present you with the things you need.
Talk about putting me under fire right away. Thank you, Madam. Thank you for an excellent job this past year. I'd like to make some comments, but before I make those comments, I'd like to open the nominations for the vice chairman's spot.
I'd like to nominate Brent Putnam for vice chairman.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further nominations? Do I have a motion to close the nominations?
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, unanimous. Do I have a motion to appoint Brent Putnam as chairman of the Board of Selectmen? Vice chairman, sorry. There you go.
So move.
Second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Ben.
Thank you.
Before we continue with tonight's agenda, I'd like to make a couple of comments. It is no secret that after the election process, members who are interested either in a leadership position or other members who are interested in having somebody in a leadership position contact one another to see if those areas are possible. I've got to tell you that having served as chairman of the Board of Selectmen twice in the past, I know what a monumental task it is to chair the Board of Selectmen. I am going to take a novel approach this year in my chairmanship, and that novel approach will be to share some of the duties of the chairmanship. I think it will make this board stronger, more cohesive, and the town a better town to live in, and give each and every member of this community more access. With that being said, I will be coming forward with some issues that I will make some assignments, i.e. to the vice chair. I would like the vice chair to handle things like the written communication to emails, maybe the liaison program that we have to boards and committees. So those are the two original duties that I would like to share. And I will embark to have a retreat, a strategic planning within the next month for the board. At that strategic planning, I'd like to build consensus within the group to see which particular issues most members are passionate about, and then let each and every one of those members of the board develop a workshop in the next year and give them the task to develop the workshop, whether that be wastewater, solid waste, anything of that nature. So please stay tuned as we continue to move forward. I hate the word power, but I would like to classify this as a sharing type of chairmanship. And I feel together we will be stronger. I would like to be able to base all of our votes, although I know that will not be possible because we all have different viewpoints on specific issues, but I think we can come together in a lot of issues and move forward as a town. And that is my goal in the next year as chairman, and I thank you very much. And I thank the board, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you, as well as the public. Thank you. I'll move on to our next agenda item, and that would be a license hearing for Pier 37. I'm going to read it. Notice is hereby given that Chapter 138 of the General Laws has amended the Town of Falmouth, amended that the Pier 37 Boathouse LLC, DBA Pier 37 Boathouse, has applied for an alteration of premises of an all-alcoholic common victual seasonal liquor license located at 88 Scranton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. A hearing will be held in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, May 21st at 7:05 p.m. Before we proceed with you, Counselor, I wanted to give a disclosure. I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license. Go right ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just found out in the last 24 hours that my brother-in-law is going to be serving as head chef over there. And I just want to make that disclosure. I don't think he has any pecuniary proprietary interest in the place, but I just want to make that for the record. His name is David Patrone.
Very good.
Thank you.
Go right ahead, Counselor.
Very good. My name is Paul Glenn. I represent the Boathouse, and we're here tonight just to ask that some remodeling be around and some be allowed, and some seats be shifted from one part of the restaurant to the deck. Okay, we have the application, and you have plans. I'm wondering, would you like me to put this up on the board for you to see, or you can all see it okay?
We have copies.
We have copies.
Yeah,
I
you
believe
have
it's in
copies,
everyone's
okay.
packet.
So you can see that when you come in the front door to the left, there are no seats there anymore. And all those seats now are out on the deck. And that's one change. And the deck used to be just gravel, stone gravel. And there used to be a tiki bar out in the deck, out in the stone gravel, which is now a bar. And those are three changes. And under the state rules, we feel we need to come to you to ask for those changes here. We're working with the building department to get all the final sign-offs on those changes with the building department. But the work is done, it's there, it just needs final inspections. We need your approval to allow that change of where liquor can be served.
Do I have any questions from the board?
No questions. I think the plan was very clear, and all the documentation you provided was very clear.
Okay. I just make a couple of comments. I appreciate you coming forward to clarify the license. It's a benefit for everybody in the town and the community, and I know that the McLaughlins have worked very hard to make this a great establishment and moving forward. Do I have any public comment? Do I have anyone in the public that would like to speak in regard to the alteration of the license premises? 4, Do I have anyone who'd like to speak against it? Mr. Dufresne? You have to come to the microphone, please.
Speaking as a representative of Precinct 2, over the past years, there have been several noise complaints, I believe, from the boathouse. And with this additional seating capacity on the outside, what has been done to ensure that the people in Belvedere will not be aggravated as they have been in the past? And I know that they've been before the board before, but now this is a kind of an outdoor expansion. Are we going to still hold the music inside so that the neighbors are not complaining? And noise does travel over into the Falmouth Heights area.
It's a good question. Would you like to answer that? Is the music going to be inside the building, or will there be music on the deck?
We've asked for no changes on where the music can be played,
So the entertainment license would be for the interior of the building?
yes,
Okay.
and for that. And so just the noise complaint, it's brought up, we pulled the police report, and there are no incidences since for a while ago, not in the last year anyway, since we've talked to the board and we made some changes. There have been no incidences for even noise with it, and I think Connor is very aware of how important that is to this board and to the neighbors, and he's working hard to keep it that way.
It's also important to note that the Board of Selectmen does not set capacity, that's set by the building commissioner. So in regard to that, I think you need to work with him in regard to capacities and get all the proper permits as we move forward with the building. Any other questions? Anyone have a motion?
I move to approve the license, the change of the license premises for the boathouse
I'll
as
sec-
presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is the Human Services Awards commendations for 2012. And who is going to handle this?
My name is Jean Adams, and I'm co-chair of the Human Services Advisory Committee. Oh, we need to bring some people in. Excuse
Okay.
us a moment.
Okay, all the human services folks, come on in, please. Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
Most of you have received a copy of our little brochure, and it includes a history of commendations. And as you'll note, since 1987, the committee's presented an annual commendations award to individuals or organizations that have been active in human service works. And those awards go to individuals or organizations who over time have alleviated human suffering that result from such factors as poverty, physical or mental handicaps, unemployment, alcohol, drug abuse, lack of health insurance, anxiety, stress, crime, violence, overcrowded housing, and I would add food insufficiencies, which we all know about, and other conditions that create suffering. The committee members are also listed on that brochure. So we're pleased this evening to present the award to individuals and organizations from a large number of nominees, and so it made the job very difficult, and our chair of that committee, subcommittee, will be one of the presenters. So, and our co-chair will be the other. So the first awardee is David Udy from Lee and McGuire's. And his certificate reads, for your dedication to people in need and giving your time and culinary expertise to foster the sense of belonging in our community during the holiday season. And just to give you a little detail, he has, I don't know what to call it, I guess been the chef in charge of the holiday dinners that are given in Falmouth for people who don't want to eat alone or who need that extra holiday cheer to get over some of the isolation.
That's right.
So we're very pleased.
Thank you very much.
Patty Murphy is going to do our next presentation.
Hi, I'm Patty Murphy. I'm chair of the committee, and it's a very exciting committee. We always have a lot of nominations, and it's wonderful to be in a town where there are so many people that do so many great things. I'm going to, also, I do want to mention Susan Clondas, who did this brochure. It's a wonderful brochure. It's got a great history. She works in the Human Services Department, but it's a wonderful tribute. So I'm going to, on our March 28th meeting, can everybody hear me? The Human Services Committee voted to award Together We Can, and in particular its officers, Kathleen Jesperson and Sandra Cooney, a commendation award for their leadership and creativity in community development. Their many years of volunteer work have brought numerous worthy community projects to fruition in Falmouth. Together We Can began in 1994 as a community coalition aimed at changing the norm around teenage drinking on prom night. The after-prom night party, called Celebrations, is now in its 18th year and hosts nearly 600 local teens each year. Falmouth parents and local businesses come together to support this fun, safe, and alcohol and drug-free event. And our high school students have come to expect this event as their rite of passage. In 1996, Together We Can became a nonprofit organization and has evolved to enable all segments of the community to collaborate in order to develop quality programs and projects in our town. Together We Can has been instrumental in the development of projects such as the Teen Center, public skate park, restoration of the World War I Memorial, fundraising of Falmouth veterans, and the Falmouth Dog Park. Kathleen Jesperson has been at the helm throughout the development and evolution of Together We Can and serves as their visionary and leader of the board of directors. Sandra Cooney serves as the treasurer of the organization and takes on the most complicated and time-consuming tasks. For 15 years, she has co-chaired the Celebrations After Prom Party and has managed the considerable fundraising that enables the event to continue. The Human Services Committee honors Together We Can and the hardworking volunteers who make this organization successful, and we thank you for your energy, vision, creativity, and devotion to making Falmouth a wonderful place to live and raise a family. I think we have some more names that we want to announce. So no, not at all. So here's one more. Very much. No, I just wanted to say some other names. Sure. What? You want to have the whole? Would you like to announce them?
I do. I would.
Go right ahead.
That's important.
That's you. Okay. Let me just do this. Okay. Turn towards David. He's taking our picture.
Okay. Well,
Doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just had something. I'm Sandra Cooney. I had something I wanted to share with you. First of all, our entire board of directors is here, and I would like to introduce them. It's nice to put names and faces together. Falmouth Together We Can Board of Directors, Linda Hamilton. Cindy Valentine. Leslie Phillips is our secretary. Kathleen Jesperson, the president, and myself, the treasurer, as you know. And I just wanted to quickly say a couple words. Very nice write-up, but I want to thank the Falmouth Human Service Committee for this award, but especially the many thanks really goes to my good friend Kathleen Jesperson. She's been an inspiration in this town, and I would truly give her the credit of bringing the concept of Together We Can here to Falmouth back in 1994. She's the one that applied for the 501c non-status profit of Falmouth Together We Can. If anyone's done that, they know it's not fun. And it was Kathleen Jesperson that helped write the book for the celebrations after prom that was delivered to all of the Cape towns that followed in Falmouth's footsteps. This is the original. 18 years ago, we had a public forum at Lawrence School. We invited the public after 40 council members, co-coordinated by Kathleen Jesperson. We put this little booklet together on risk and strategic plans for our youth. And there's just one paragraph in here that I would like to read to you. 40 members of what we call Together We Can Council have developed the plans you have in your hand, which was this. The council is made up of people from all segments of our community. The reason we got together was to develop a realistic plan that would enable anyone in Falmouth to play a role in creating quality programs that would make our town healthy, safe, and caring for everyone. We asked ourselves, why should we wait for anyone to do for us what we are capable of doing ourselves? We felt that we can share some of our time, our expertise, and our other resources, and that we can make a difference. We decided that we can build a network of people, groups, and businesses who are interested in promoting things like family, neighborhoods, a healthy environment, and the celebration of our diversity. We decided that we can build a community that cares. And here we are 18 years later with what you have in your little award ceremony, a lot of accomplishments with the help of a great deal of people. And so to everyone, even the Board of Selectmen for projects that have come before you, we thank the community, parents, businesses. It's people such as yourselves. We're proud of all the achievements, and we hope to continue to set in motion programs and projects that everyone in Falmouth can truly feel good about. Together, we really can make a difference. So thank you very much, and this board is wonderful to work with. You'd be jealous we have fun at our meetings.
Hi, I'm Elaine Sinney. I'm co-chair of the Falmouth Human Services Committee. And at our March 28th meeting, the Falmouth Human Services Committee voted to award the United States Coast Guard sector of southeastern New England, the Coast Guard Cutter Tybee and the Coast Guard's AIDS and Navigation Team, a commendation award for your ongoing volunteer efforts to support our community through positive youth development. The Coast Guard has a 20-year history of sponsoring the Partners in Education program with the public schools. The Woods Hole personnel have provided a great deal of support to Morse Pond School, Falmouth High School, and their students over the years, including weekly classroom mentoring, science and work projects, Veterans Day celebrations, and anti-bullying efforts. These partnerships bring added resources and support for the academic goals of the school system, while exposing students to organizations and businesses operating in their communities. Moreover, in 2009, Coast Guard personnel participated in the Falmouth Prevention Partnership by receiving training in the Guiding Good Choices parenting program and facilitating a 5-week parenting program for Coast Guard families in our town. The Human Services Committee honors the men and women of the Coast Guard whose volunteer work serves as a positive role model for our youth, and we thank you for your off-duty support of our community. Thank you. Did you want me to invite?
Would you like to come up?
Yes. Okay, we're having a reception next door. Oh, come up. But we're also having a reception next door.
Get a picture.
Yeah.
Before they all go sit down, would you like all of the recipients to be up here for one picture of everybody? Sure. Everyone together, that might be a good idea. So if you folks stay there, we get, please.
We're also having a reception across the street. We've been cooking for days, so come on over.
That's what, Kathleen, that's what we want.
Yes, thank you. But we have to get Cindy over here so.
Can you get them all, or do we need to scrunch a little bit? If you can scoot a little bit.
Yeah, turn sideways.
Almost there. And I do believe you're going to have a reception afterwards for the recipients. The board just wanted to know if you were going to save some refreshments for them.
Yes, now the fun starts, and we're all going over to the Human Services office, which is across the parking lot, and we have punch and cookies.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
As usual, this makes a great community.
Hi, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us.
Now we get to the boring stuff.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. See, I'm just wondering, let's see, it's a good question. I don't know if he has a PowerPoint. I don't know either. And I don't see him. Oh, there he is. If he has a PowerPoint, we'll fire it up. Next up on our agenda is the Barnstable County Commissioners, Andrew Gottlieb, a report on general wastewater approach update. And
Good evening. I can clear a room with the best of them, huh?
you need us to fire this up? or
I
you-
don't.
Okay, great.
I don't. It's all up here.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Gottlieb. I'm the Executive Director of the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative. And in the process of trying to visit every Board of Selectmen on the Cape this spring, to talk a little bit about what the county's doing on investigation of regional alternative for wastewater management. Perhaps as much to tell you what we're doing as to sort of clarify some of the myths out there about what we're doing and what we're in fact not doing. The county commissioners directed myself and Paul Niedzwiecki, the director of the Cape Cod Commission, to evaluate an alternative approach to town-by-town management of wastewater. We are, as you well know, seeing individual towns at different stages of the process looking at what to do about their wastewater management program. Almost without exception, towns are coming up with their best effort at looking within their own borders at what their options are and coming up with management programs that almost without exception are not meeting either voter approval or acceptance of the affordability of those programs. And so we're looking at, and I think quite responsibly so, sort of the question of, are there potential cost savings? Are there efficiencies, both in terms of saving money and in terms of saving time, in an alternative approach to wastewater management that has more of a regionalized approach to it? And in keeping with the directive we got from the commissioners, we're trying to do, and I think are doing, this analysis in full public view. And I just want to describe to you the process that we're using along the way. We've been given a deadline of the end of the year to come back with a recommendation of the county commissioners. And what we're doing is trying to, rather than sort of go look at the issue, come up with a proposed recommendation, and then put it out for public comment, rather we decided to take a different approach, which was to try and break the issue down into bite-sized pieces We're using the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative Board as the initial sounding board to discuss sort of the staff level analysis of what some of the issues are. And then after we've talked to the governing board about it, or the steering committee from the collaborative, we're holding a series of public meetings to get input on each one of those subject matter issues. So for example, first thing we presented to the board last month was an analysis of the factors that drive cost in wastewater management on Cape Cod. So tried to break down based on actual cases in southeastern Mass, Cape and the Islands over the last dozen years, where wastewater infrastructure has been constructed, anything ranging from a conventional Title V system all the way to a relatively modest-sized municipal facility. What the costs were, not the costs projected by the vendor, but what the costs were paid by the actual proponent of the project. And so we've got actual case study analysis of 13 systems that were done. And we were able to break down what the cost elements were and do some analysis to show how sensitive those cost elements were to different decisions that towns made. And so we went over that analysis with the board, and then we're going to be holding a couple of meetings a week from this Thursday. I haven't got the rooms nailed down yet, so I can't tell you exactly where they're going to be. One's going to be in Harwich, 6 to 8, probably town hall next Thursday, and then I'm planning on doing one either in Falmouth or in Mashpee earlier in the day next Thursday, where we'll spend about an hour presenting the analysis to whoever comes, and then we'll hang around for however long they want to talk after that to get feedback and comment on it. And we're going to take each one of those issues and handle it the same way, so that as we develop the analysis of some of the underpinnings for the analysis, there'll have been an opportunity for full public disclosure of how we saw it and some discussion about what led to our thoughts about one particular way of dealing with it versus another, and the opportunity to get input. To the extent we feel like we've gotten a fairly broad level of input and we have a handle on the issues, we'll put one issue to bed and move on to the next one. If we don't get it right the first time, we'll go back and we'll redo it, rethink about it, talk about it more publicly, and then move on to the next one. So as we go over the course of the spring and the summer, it's our expectation that we're going to have had a fairly thorough public discussion of all the elements that go into thinking through whether there's an alternative approach that merits consideration by the region. When we're done with that, Paul and I will come back with a recommendation to the county commissioners, and it'll then be in their court to make a determination whether they want to proceed with that or not proceed with that. And that's sort of what we're doing. There's been a lot of talk about, we're going to create a wastewater authority, it's going to have separate authorities on taxing. People are talking about specifically how much it's going to cost any one individual to do anything. They're talking in great detail about what the powers of the towns will or won't be, who's going to do what. It's all going to be this type of system. It's all going to be big central. We're not going to do any alternatives. All those types of very definitive statements. And all I can tell you is that there's nothing yet other than a fact-finding mission and some public discussion about the facts that's ongoing. And to the extent that anybody's sort of saying, it's this, let me put the straw man, it's this, and let me kick the hell out of it, they're doing it because they either think that's where it's going or they think it's their strategic advantage, given what their perspective on the issue is, to make claims and then knock them down. So the more definitive anybody is about what we've decided and what we're recommending to commissioners, I would caution you to be more suspicious about those statements, because we haven't decided anything, all right? The only assumption that we have made in the documents that is guiding how we're proceeding on this matter is this: that the Cape as a region, individual towns, individual people, individual communities, however you want to break it out, has an obligation to deal with this wastewater management problems in a more responsible, environmentally responsible, economically responsible manner than we are right now. That's the only assumption we've made, that we have a problem and we're committed as a region to fixing it. That's it. Everything else is a, hopefully, high-level, honest, open discussion about what goes into making that decision. If at the end of the day we look at it and say the system that we have now, town by town, provides the best outcome to the Cape, and best meaning however you want to define best, most cost-effective, most efficient, least burdensome, most local control, people will place different priority on each one of those elements. If that's the best option, that's what we'll recommend. If we see there's another way forward that might provide efficiencies, lower costs, better cleanup, less infrastructure, more people remaining on their existing Title V systems, broader use of different types of alternative processes to manage wastewater, we'll recommend that. And I guess my only response to the criticism we've taken thus far is that it seems to be criticism based on an unwillingness to think about the current situation and actually do an analysis to determine whether the way we're doing things now is the best way to achieve our outcome or not. And I just, for the life of me, frankly, can't understand why people are opposed to the notion about thinking about our problem a little bit differently than we have, because the system that we have now has been one that's been passed down to us through the Federal Clean Water Act and then back down through the state. And it's worked relatively well in different parts of the country and different parts of the state, but it is not tailored or tuned to the particularly unique circumstances that we see on Cape Cod. And so to assume that that's the only way we can do this without testing that premise seems short-sighted. And so that's the work that we're doing now. And as I said, I'm in the process of going out providing the same message. One, this message to any board of selectmen that will have me come see them, which is not all. And two, to sort of, at this stage of the process, which is still very early, see if there's any feedback you want me to incorporate into the process that we're undertaking right now, because it is still very early, and there's an openness and an opportunity for that input to happen in a way that I think can influence the way we're looking at it and thinking about it. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. I've got a couple other things that I can touch on that may be of interest. I'm happy to do, but I don't know whether it's appropriate now to hear how that sat.
Okay, before I do that, I'll open it up to the board for any questions. Any thoughts? I do have just one thing. How are you going to publicize, actually, you're saying that meeting's going to be a week from Thursday. How will folks know where it is in the exact time?
We've got a couple of methods. We've got a fairly significant group of people who follow the work that we're doing. I have all those emails, so we have a broad distribution list that we let people know. There's a number of nonprofit organizations and community partners that we have that we're aware of that we send, and they rely on them for distribution. We'll be sending it to each one of the towns through yourselves, through the boards of selectmen and the town manager for posting. We'll be timing it so that we get in the weekly, so that by Friday, in Friday's paper publication, across the Cape, because these are not limited, obviously, in interest just to the communities in which we're holding the hearings. We'll get them in the Friday papers. I'll do a press release. A couple of the radio stations typically pick these things up, and we'll post it on our website.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering out there, because we are being televised, if folks wanted to go find out, they could go right to your website.
They can go right to our website, which is the capekeepers.org site, and we'll have that. And then we've also taken up the practice, starting last month, when we're having any of our board meetings discussing these matters, we're holding them in Barnstable Town Hall, because they've generously offered us their audio-visual capabilities. So they're providing us with a disc recording of all of our meetings, which we're posting on our site. So in the event someone doesn't have the opportunity to come and hear the presentation at the governing board, or is unable to make any one of these specific meetings that we're holding, we're posting those online so that people can see the video, and then they can comment directly to me on any thoughts that they might have.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Pat, you started to say something, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm thinking about what Andy has just said, and it seems, when I look at Falmouth, and Falmouth has been working on this wastewater issue for a very, very long time, and now over the last couple of years, we have a water quality management committee who is looking at the big problem here in Falmouth. And they're taking into consideration the fact that we have a big pipe. You know, we have a wastewater treatment plant that has now been upgraded to a tertiary treatment. And, but we also have a community that is very serious about looking at alternatives. And a year ago, when funding came before town meeting saw the wisdom of looking at alternatives, and actually in approving a $277 million appropriation for the committee to move forward, included in that was $500,000 to actually test alternatives. So I guess my question is, and that is either the permeable reactive barriers, or it's any number of different alternatives, whether it's oysters, through the aquaculture, or other forms of alternative treatments like compost toilets and urine diversion toilets and so forth. So I guess my question is, in your tours around the Cape or meetings with various boards of selectmen, are you hearing any other towns talk a lot about alternatives, or are they just simply looking at the idea of the big pipe and whether or not they don't want it and they want to move on to something else? What are you actually hearing to date?
Well, obviously, it's different in each town. I think you guys are certainly further ahead because you've put some money up to look at some of the diverse alternative types. There's a lot of talk about it in other towns, but not so much an expenditure along the lines of what Falmouth has done. Orleans funded a study that looked at an alternative, a smaller scale alternative, a step system alternative to their recommended plan that was included in their wastewater management program. They spent, I want to say, a couple $100,000 on it. Report came back within the last month. Basically said it was 6 of one, half dozen of the other in terms of cost analysis of the smaller size system versus the larger central facility, which was not what was represented to town meeting by the proponents of that $250,000 expenditure. There was talk of savings in the $20 to $30 million range, and there was the savings were a rounding error. So Orleans has spent money. Not too many other towns have spent money on it directly. That said, there are a number of communities that are working on alternatives that are specific to their particular situation. And a number of them are projects in which the county is a participating partner. We are spending significant county resources, and we have providing technical assistance to your Citizens Advisory Committee in the form of support from Mike Domenica from CH2M Hill. He's been very engaged working with your committee and Jerry and Eric in Virginia on developing the RFPs necessary to gain professional services to do the analysis that you wanted to look at a number of the alternative technologies. So we've been very deeply involved and supportive of that effort. As you know, because I believe the board signed off on it, one of the 3 wetlands alteration projects we're looking at as an alternative approach to mitigating the amount of collection and treatment we have to do is the inlet widening in Bourne's Pond. The county, on your behalf, developed an environmental notification form and is currently negotiating the MEPA process with the Secretary's office. And we're hopeful that we're going to come out with an outcome that makes it clear that there is no requirement for an environmental impact report for widenings like Bourne's Pond, as long as certain information is developed in the individual permit processes managed by DEP and CZM. So there's a potential big significant savings in process costs that the county has supported, and that's directly an alternative to the big pipe solution. We're working with some of your folks on, as well as people in Mashpee and then also in Wellfleet with a slightly different orientation in Wellfleet around determining how much credit one can get in a TMDL allocation for large-scale aquaculture, either whether it be oysters or cohort propagation. So you have a number of different towns looking at those different alternatives, and consistently the county's been a partner with them trying to facilitate those processes either through the provision of direct technical assistance or where we've taken the work and done it on town's behalf. So I think the thing I hear more consistently as we talk to different towns is just a sort of a concern that every town can see what's happening in every other town, and a feeling that putting a lot of work and a lot of money into this and these programs are not moving forward, and at the same time water quality continues to get worse. And I think what I'm hearing back is a lot of concern and a lack of certainty about which direction to turn from towns. So what do we do next? We've got significant high-profile losses for projects in Barnstable. We've got a loss in Yarmouth. You've got the 20-something odd $1 million for a drinking water project in Eastham that failed a couple of weeks ago. So people are making clear statements that they're concerned about the exposure that they're looking at in funding these projects. Very few people are questioning the need to do it. What people seem to be looking for, and towns seem to be looking to us for, is some guidance on how do we get from where we are to a solution. And the interesting dichotomy is that they're at the same time saying we don't quite know what to do and we don't know how to get from where we are to where we want to be. At the same time, there's a reluctance to talk very openly about changing authority so that there's an opportunity to do something a little bit differently than has been done. The other sense I get is an interest, a real interest at the local level in finding ways to partner with adjoining communities, because I think there's an emerging recognition that in most cases, and I recognize that Falmouth is somewhat different given that majority of your watersheds are self-contained within the town of Falmouth, so the opportunities to share costs and share burdens with your neighboring communities are somewhat less here than they are in some of the other communities, but a real recognition in a number of the other communities that working differently with their adjoining communities provides opportunities for real cost savings. And we're sort of swimming against 350 years of tradition and practice where everybody does their own, and it's difficult to look outside your boundaries. And it's certainly difficult when you're talking about looking outside your boundaries, bringing wastewater in from another community and placing it for disposal or treatment within your community. That's a tough discussion that communities have difficulty with. And so really, I think what we're trying to do with this regional analysis we're doing is look beyond some of those barriers. In fact, the next meeting that we're having on Wednesday, the issue area we're talking about is existing legal authorities to deal with regionalization among and between communities to deal with wastewater. What towns can do on their own, what state authorities exist on the local option basis through Massachusetts general laws, and what authorities exist from the Commonwealth to impose on communities to force them to work together. There are a range of options available, a number of tools. None of them are very good, which is why I don't think they've been utilized very well. But there are authorities to do a lot of what we're talking about doing, only they're not particularly effective in their current form.
Just as a follow-up too, is when people think about working with the county toward regional solutions, I think oftentimes they think the solution is the end game, where in actuality, in working with other communities and with the county on exploring solutions, is that that's where some of the regionalization can actually occur in terms of thinking and communities working together to arrive at more effective solutions, but not necessarily wouldn't be the same solution for each community. It could be different, but the whole idea is, I think, to get people to the table, to realize that this problem is not going to go away. And the longer it stays there, the more expensive it's going to be. And the cost of doing nothing far outweighs the cost of doing something. But I also think that citizens, the taxpayers, are looking to know, what is the tap going to be for me? Is it going to be a one-time cost to me and that's it, I pay for it, and the solution is going to be of such a nature that it will continue to improve the quality of the watersheds? Or is it a cost I'm going to have to pay for over time, or again and again at some point if it doesn't work? I think these are some of the fears that the citizens have, that it'll never be just a one-time bill. That bill might come due several times over if it isn't done right.
Well, certainly one of the strategies we've tried to utilize is to ensure that whatever we do, we only ask people to pay once. And whether that payment comes in one lump sum or is spread out over a number of years, the point is you want to figure out what your solution is, invest in that solution, and have a degree of confidence that that solution is going to solve your problem, and not go back and say, well, we decided it was this, and then that didn't really work very well, and so now we have to do something completely different. Because it's very difficult to get this through once, through a town meeting once. It's almost impossible if you have to go back and say we were wrong. Now, in terms of exactly how costs are going to get allocated under the current scenario of a town-by-town versus some other regionalized approach that's either a series of communities that share a watershed working together, or the county as a 15-town consortium of communities operating together, how those different scenarios might play out, I don't know yet because we haven't finished that analysis. What we have done is build some, or in the process of building some fairly interesting tools that allow us to look at what the costs of different scenarios are, try and put some generalized costs that are based on actual experience within this region. You know, so many dollars per foot of pipe, so you can do some analysis to look at scenarios where if we're looking at collection in areas that have greater density, where you have 2 or 3 connections for every 100 feet, how does that play out in terms of a cost to the individual versus areas where you have 150 or 200 or 250 feet between connections? How does that play out in terms of cost? We're also developing a rates model that will allow us to look at, either on a town-by-town basis, how one can finance whatever the mix of technologies are that you choose to utilize, how you finance them, under what terms and conditions, and how you choose to allocate those between betterments, general tax levy, other alternative scenarios that we haven't completely formulated yet, to determine what the rate impact is going to be on the individual homeowner. You know, do you have the ability to tweak things so that from an affordability point of view, you extend your betterment terms beyond the conventional 20 years? Do you extend your borrowing terms up to 40 or 50 years, as provisions in the open space bond bill allow you to do? And what does that mean in terms of both overall cost and cost on a year-to-year basis to the individuals? So that either on a region-wide basis or on an individual town basis, we'll be giving you a tool by the end of the year that'll let you plug in different assumptions and see how it will play out for your tax base. And it'll let you see how it plays out for your user community, whether you're on a go-it-alone basis, whether you're working with your adjoining town on a voluntary basis, or whether you're working with your towns as part of a revised wastewater management entity, the form of which we haven't determined what it might be yet. So we're going to have a lot of those tools so that we can take away some of the mystery and arm people with information about, if you do it this way, it has these impacts on costs. If you do it this way, it has other impacts on costs. So that some of these wild ideas that people are throwing out there, it's going to be $60,000 per lot, and it's going to be greater than your tax bill, and it's going to bankrupt everybody. Those kind of scare tactics, which are out there now. We have people out there actively campaigning on those assertions, using those numbers. I didn't make that number of $60,000 up. It's out there. I've seen it. I've seen it on people's campaign literature. And it's a fabrication. And it doesn't do anything to advance the discussion at all. So we'll be developing those tools to try and bound that discussion in some form of reality based on what things actually cost and how you might apply them in the right circumstances.
I just want to follow up on that. Are you factoring in, when you're looking at all these costs, at ongoing sewer rates? Because some of the alternatives might be a one-time expense, but not have a sewer rate. Whereas the sewer rates in this community, I believe it's $3 per 100 cubic feet. So it's an ongoing expense as well. So are you factoring that into your mix?
We are factoring that into the mix, and a lot of people have that same premise. I'd actually challenge it, in the sense that people, and there are plenty of people, move to Cape Cod, septic system in the home they buy, works fine. They're able to use it for the whole time that they're here. They may never pump it. They'll sell the house in 10 or 15 years. I spent nothing on wastewater, right? Didn't cost me a dime. Unless they're one of those unlucky people for whom the septic system goes belly up because the person that they bought it from was 1 or 2 people in that home, and a family of 5 moved in, and they started using a lot more water and washing machines. And 3 years later, septic system that worked fine for 2 people doesn't work fine for 5, and they're in a nitrogen-sensitive area, and they get a $45,000 bill to put in an IA system. So, you know, at the end of the day, and we've done some estimates, over the next 20 years, just in replacing Title V systems, which give you 0 nitrogen benefit, do nothing to improve water quality, the region will spend somewhere in excess of $1 billion. Now you can spend that, you know, an average cost for a vanilla Title V system is $13,000 a home. So you can say, I didn't spend anything every year until I got hit with a $13,000 bill, and then I lost the lottery that year and I got hit. Or you could say, you know, over a 20-year period, I should have been putting aside $750 or $800 a year to cover my wastewater, the replacement cost for my wastewater management system. So you're paying people are paying over time, whether they recognize it or not. It's easy for them to see it when they get the sewer bill every month or every quarter, what they're paying. They don't see it so clearly when they're paying for a Title V system, because maintenance of Title V is not very good. And whatever they're paying for, at least on the people that are paying on the sewer bills, they're partly paying for, one, the convenience of having that wastewater removed from their home and treated appropriately, and they're also getting some degree of water quality benefit because they're putting out a much lower level of nitrogen and a much higher quality wastewater into whatever receiving water is getting that water than they are for the Title V system, which is largely responsible for the degradation of water quality. So part of this discussion is sort of open people's mind up to how costs, where they're incurring costs in the system, how they get spread out, and where they pay that cost. They pay it now when they have to replace a system, or they pay it now in the cost, in the price they get for the home when they sell it. In many cases, people are having to upgrade those Title V systems at time of transfer under the code, and that results in if not a reduction in the sale price of their home, a reduction in the amount of money they walk out of when they leave that home from that process. So we're factoring in all those life cycle costs into the model to try and make people realize that everybody's into this for something over the lifespan of the time they're here. How they experience that may be different, but they're paying one way or the other. Somebody's paying. And if we are, we're already looking at $1 billion expenditure over a 20-year planning horizon for no water quality benefit, then we ought to perhaps think about what the increment on top of that is that allows us to restore those water bodies and we actually get something for that investment.
Okay, thank you. Brett, did you have something?
There's just so much, and there's not a whole lot of time. I guess part of the concerns, I think, from the general public level about the county getting involved is just the sheer scope of what we're talking about, in that you've got, when you look, for example, at metropolitan Boston, and there's a certain degree of irony that we're getting sued by various, or the state's getting sued, the EPA's getting sued about this whole issue of nitrogen. And one of the fears, of course, is that sewers will be mandated. And yet, the solution for Boston, the MWRA and fixing the sewer system there, it was a failed sewer system to begin with. So the solution was fix the failed system. Here, we don't even have a system in place. And to put a system in place like that, when you look at the size of Cape Cod, when you look at our population density, and you compare it to metropolitan Boston, the two don't compare. And I think that's where a lot of the fears come from, that people look at just the MWRA bills, the before and after. A lot of folks, they had bills go up 100, 200, 300% just to fix the failed sewer system in Boston. And I think the fear going down the road is even small sewer systems in the various towns. And one of the costs that nobody talks about, and it's been alluded to here in Falmouth, is what happens when the infrastructure gets old. We talk about extending the lending periods past 20 years. Well, if 20 years is the expected lifetime of a sewer plant, and that's been mentioned here in Falmouth, but you're still paying for it for 30 or 40 years, how are you going to pay for a new plant? How are you going to pay to upgrade the existing plant if you're still paying for the one that you built 20, 30, 40 years ago?
Well, let me just jump in on that one. The provisions under the statute that we put into the open space bill that provide for extended both borrowing and betterment specifically state that you could go beyond 20 years, no greater than 50, but also no greater than the useful life of the asset, whichever is less. So the authorization that we drafted for that legislation does not allow a community to borrow or better a property for beyond the useful life of the asset. And so there are parts of, if you're starting from scratch, certainly the components, the moving parts of the component of the treatment facility may have shorter lifespan. But a lot of the pipes and significant in the concrete in portions of the treatment facility and the conveyance system can go well beyond 20 years. So you have the ability under the financing program offered by the state, to which that provision pertains, to do a blended financing so that you're ensuring that people are not in the position of paying for facilities that have become obsolete and are no longer in service beyond their useful life. Secondly, you do have the ability, and some of the rates model that we're building takes account for long-term repair, maintenance, and replacement costs, and recognize from the experience that we've seen in other parts of the state that communities leave themselves vulnerable when their rates fail to reflect the long-term care and operation of their facility. And so certainly, like any well-run operation, the rates analysis we're doing incorporates long-term care and replacement, so that you're building up reserves within your collections, so that when those replacements come, you're not having a rate shock. Doesn't mean a town has to do it that way. The tool has the module that allows you to factor that in and see what the rate impact would be on the normalized basis versus what it would be if you just let it go and then deal with it at the time.
If I may follow up.
Go right ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned that you can't borrow beyond the useful life, because that's something that was never discussed here in Falmouth. When the original draft plan was brought before the town, there were discussions of, oh, we could borrow up to 50 years with 0% interest. And of course, there were a number of people, and Eric Turkington was one of them, who said, look, we could borrow up to 50 years with 0% interest, but there's a limited amount of money available there, and he put a very realistic appraisal on our odds of getting the 0% loans. But I think more importantly, the perception was that we could extend this borrowing out for several more decades without any worries whatsoever. Nobody ever said that the statute, the rules involved here say, oh no, you can't borrow beyond the useful life.
Well,
so
actually, I'll go one further than that, and this was talked about a little bit at the time the statute was passed. If you're going to use the state revolving fund and take advantage of the zero interest, federal law caps the borrowing period for 30 years. So if you want to go from 30 to 50 and do that increment, and we said this in some of the materials we put out, but it was fairly deep into the discussion at that point. But if you want to go from 30 to 50, it's going to have to be on the town's conventional borrowing. So it's not that you could ever go to zero at 50, but from a rate relief and equalization perspective, there may be some benefits to borrowing at your own rates at 3% or 3.5% or 4. If you're going out 50, you might have to pay that much. That may be better from a rates impact to your customers than 30 years at zero. So it's a tool and an option that you could do the analysis to see what suits your community better. But there is a clear line of demarcation. Zero interest loans can't go past 30. If you want to go past that, it's on your own borrowing authority.
One other quick follow-up, and kind of a follow-up on what Brent said. How will we know as we move forward, that the DEP won't change the rules like they did to Falmouth with our own wastewater treatment plant? We upgraded our facility for 1 million gallons, and they come back and pull a permit, brought us down to 500,000 gallons. So in other words, we got half of the capacity after the game was played. They changed the rules.
Right.
Is the DEP going to sign into this type of process or no?
The whole issue of regulatory standards and emerging contaminants is an ever-changing one. It's the ability to detect contaminants at lower and lower levels results in changes to permit terms. I think that, from a nitrogen management perspective, I think it's reasonable to assume that approved in the context of the town's comprehensive plan, the permits you're getting and your program has some protection because both the state and the feds are signing off on it. That said, something is known to becomes known as a significant public health or environmental threat somewhere down the road, well past the time that a plan was permitted. There's always reopeners. And, I'd be lying to you if I told you there's anything ironclad about that. But I think, the more thorough the analysis and more broadly considered the nitrogen management program is, the greater certainty you have that throughout the life of that program, that commitment's going to be honored.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Any public comment? Mark?
Mark Fitteran, Trotting Park Road, Precinct 6. Our wastewater management committee has been in existence for almost 2 years, and I participated in most, if not all of it. Initially, the committee tried to sell us a $650 million plant and sewers everywhere, and more than a handful of citizens banded together, worked diligently, and convinced the wastewater committee to go down the path that we chose to go down. our town meeting decided to fund it. I think there's people out there who are a little bit afraid of the county taking over and having to fight that battle again in a different, larger venue. It may be lost. As far as working with other towns, the only one we share is Wacoit Bay, and the plan is not to do anything there for almost 30 years. So I see us as further ahead than any town on Cape Cod. And I also could add that in Mashpee, they've achieved some honest numbers and reductions through their shellfish cultivation program. And they received very little help from anyone. If they received more discouragement than encouragement, but yet they went on their way and have proved that these alternatives can work. And in the interim, just in the last few weeks, we learned about the seaweed that also may eat nitrogen. So I think that Falmouth is doing a fairly decent job, and if you could even say we're on the cutting edge, and there's more than a little bit of fear in my mind and of others that moving this to the county level is the wrong way to go. Also, I'd like to add, that number that you said, Pat, was 2.7 million, not 277 million. That town meeting okayed. And I'd like to ask you, Ms. Flynn, how did you vote relative to sending this to the county? Were you affirmative?
Sending what?
This to the county.
No, sending what to the county?
They having them investigate the sewer level at the county level. Weren't you prompted by the delegates?
Mark, I first of all address it through the chair, if you don't mind. And this is based on, and I know you have some questions about Mrs. Flynn and her role in the county government, but please stay pertinent to what we're talking about. And Mr. Gottlieb, we're not talking about any votes that happened. He's given us an informational presentation tonight. We'll have that opportunity at another time, I'm sure.
Oh, I thought he was here because the Board of Delegates voted and asked him to be here, or to pursue this. I just see it as flying in the face of what our wastewater committee has done. And I'm a little bit, well, I'm negative on the idea, obviously.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to anything, Andrew, or whatever?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
I know I'm past your time you've allocated for me, and I'm supposed to go get my son.
That's right.
So I'm happy at any point to come back. One quick piece of information. We had expected a filing by the court parties, Conservation Law Foundation, Citizen Protection of Buzzards Bay, and the EPA today, based on their notice to the court that they had failed to achieve settlement. The expectation today was that they were going to file a schedule for argument. They requested, the plaintiffs requested today an uncontested motion to extend their date for filing the schedule till the 29th. The lead attorney at CLF had a baby 2 weeks ago and hasn't been paying attention to what we've been worrying about, so I don't have any information on the filing, but at this point our expectation is the parties are going to answer, or the defendant, in this case EPA, will be answering the plaintiff's claims, and then they'll be going to court.
Okay. I have one more public comment out here, I believe. Yeah.
Andrew Putnam, Precinct 9. I want to come into this with a little bit of a different tone. I want to say, first of all, I want to thank the county government for looking into these things. I mean, it is such a burden on the towns to solve these problems. I've seen the numbers. I've seen what the cost is of sewering, not just here, in many other places. It's expensive. It's a scary figure, especially in a place where the cost of living doesn't seem to be dropping. It seems to be on an exponential rise. And that's something I think we need to consider when we look at solutions to wastewater. One of the things I would like to bring up as a point is I want to look further than just sewering and further than just 20 or 30 or 50 years. You know, one of the things that I don't know if many of you are aware of is, you know, the United States, we're one of the greatest countries in the world, in my opinion, and I love love living in this country. More importantly, I love living in this state. But one of the issues that the whole country is facing is an infrastructure issue, and sewering is part of our infrastructure. There are bridges falling apart across this country. There are power lines that are no longer able to be maintained in the way they are. Grids are facing the problem of looking at billions beyond billions of dollars. And many states are looking at facing the same problem of billions of dollars of new road work and new bridges that need to be built because no one looked at the long term. Long term for infrastructure is not 20 or 30 years. Long term for infrastructure is 100 years, especially in a society like ours. We are growing. We will continue to grow. We will not stop growing. That is a reality that we must face, and a reality that needs to be at the forefront of our thought before we think of anything else. Then you must think of cost. Because when it comes to sewering, sure, we could sewer. Sure, we could look at alternatives. I'm not going to just stick to sewering. Let's talk about the whole spectrum here. Alternative sewering, it doesn't matter what it is. You need to look at 100 years down the line. Because 50 years down the line, any one of those solutions, whether it be sewering or an alternative solution, maybe you are paying for the cost of replacing the whole thing. Potentially. Remember, they're building bridges now that are expected to last 150 years. And they could have done it 50 years ago, but they didn't. They didn't think about that. We have the technology, we have the resources, we have the knowledge that we need. Now it's time to get smart. Let's stop thinking big. Let's start thinking smart. 100 years. What will Falmouth be like in 100 years? What will we be replacing in 100 years? And what are the costs going to be? Now I have to think about this one. To my grandchildren, because that's probably what will end up being at that time, my grandchildren or great-grandchildren in 100 years. So what is the cost going to be to them? Because as a taxpayer, as a resident of the town, that's what I'm going to think about when these things come before town meeting next time and I have to vote on it. I'm going to think about 100 years or 150 years down the line. And frankly, sewering and some of the alternatives is not going to be something I'm going to be in favor of. So just to think about that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Go get your son. Thanks. Okay, next up is Pop's Kitchen, 170 Main Street, a request for a change of hours of operation for their wine and malt common victual license. Before we get going, give a disclosure, I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license. Is anyone here representing Pops? Do you want to come up and just explain? This is... Hi.
When we were here, when we first came before you about getting a liquor license, or beer and wine, only beer and wine, I guess we didn't make ourselves clear enough that we wanted to go until 8 or 9 o'clock with it. And so they put on the license 3 o'clock. Because right now we do close at 3. We're going to extend those hours in the summer up until probably Columbus Day. So we want to be able to serve beer and wine outside. Well, I mean, out on the little tables we can have, inside as well. Anyway, that's what I like to do.
Okay, so you're looking for a license that would extend your current operation from 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday till 9 p.m., and then on Sundays from noon until 9 p.m.?
That would be great.
Is that what you're looking for?
I'll make that motion.
You make a motion for that?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, was there any public comment? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
I won't be passing it down. They didn't have any Sunday hours on the license, so I won't pass that down. Okay, next up is a vote to affirm our participation in the wind turbine option review exercise. I don't think we need to take a vote this evening, and I think it would be best that we don't take a vote. I'd just like to recap some information that we received from Stacy Smith, who would be the facilitator. she would like to kick off. We have a host of applications from different particular folks from different groups. We have yet to receive any applications from the 5 residents category. We've received applications for 2 residents primarily concerned with implementing Falmouth's Climate Action Protection Plan. We've received applications from 2 taxpayers primarily concerned with maintaining the fiscal benefit. We also have spoken to the Finance Committee and asked them to send us some additional applicants for that group. We have received applicants for the 2 positions of the strong empathy for all perspectives, primarily concerned with fair and effective process. And we have received applicants for, designees, I guess, from the town manager's office. It would probably be fair to read into the record who those folks are. Robert Shea, the GIS coordinator, David Bailey, the director of assessing, and Karen Cadera, director of human services. And Stacy Smith would like to hold a meeting, her first meeting, on Wednesday the 30th, which would be held at the Falmouth Library. Before the meeting, she would like to meet with the different stakeholder groups so that the self-selection process could take effect. So that means the applicants who have filled out applications will be invited to that meeting. Those folks will collectively work with her in a little meetings, in a subcommittee, I wouldn't call it a committee, but in a room where they would agree on who would represent those groups. And that would happen between 5 and 6 p.m. And then from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., there would be the original meeting of the process, which would outline how the process would move forward. That's what she is suggesting. And the board itself would look to have some volunteers. Again, as a self-selection process, we wouldn't take any vote, but we would hope that a couple of members of the board would volunteer for this. So I'm going to open it up a little bit to discussion and some clarification to the board, and then I take some public comment. I do know that Stacy Smith has contacted us and said that she would like to leave open the 5 positions that represents the residents in the area, the affected residents. If and when they decide and would like to come to the table, she would be happy to have them do the self-selection process. These are going to be open public meetings. There will be a form and role of conduct at the meetings, so they will take public comment, but she will implement it. This is going to be her and the Consensus Building Institute that is going to run these meetings. It is not going to be the Board of Selectmen that is going to do this. We're going to have these meetings posted, and they will be televised for the public. So at any time, we move forward. Do I have any comments from the board?
Well, I was just saying, going through the number of applications that we received, I felt very gratified by the people who have applied to be on these various groups. I thought we were very fortunate to have the quality of people who are interested and want to participate. So I was really pleased about that. And then I would say regarding the volunteer, since my duties have considerably decreased this evening, I would consider being a volunteer as someone who would, obviously we don't participate in the meetings or in the discussion or in the agreements. We simply are there as selectmen, any 2 selectmen are there as observers. And I think I could probably maybe handle that.
Okay.
Unless if there's anybody else who wants to do it.
Is there anyone else?
Maybe our new member might consider.
One of the questions I have is whether if we're trying to really stay in the background, do we want to have 1 or 2 people there? I'd certainly be happy to volunteer my services as a second one if the board felt having that, but if someone else, since I am new to this negotiation, if we want to have someone else who's been involved, I'd be happy to step back also.
My personal viewpoint on this is that we could all, and we will all have an opportunity to stop at those meetings. They're open public meetings, and we could all do that. It is always so much better when someone can be in the room and not only look at a presentation on television, but you can get the feel of the room and the body language that is happening within the room. The cameras cannot always capture what is going on at a meeting. So it would be a great communication tool if we had some members that volunteered to do that, who could give some insight to the rest of the board as we move forward on what's actually going on. Because this is going to be a process that I believe will be somewhat intense, and it will be a process that will involve different viewpoints, and it will also be a process that hopefully will take us to a culmination of coming up with the decision on how we're going to move forward.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I just have one question.
Sure, go right ahead.
On the 5 that we're holding, but if you look at it, did we change the wording from, and I don't have it in front of me, but I read both copies. Originally it said, I thought it really mentioned the abutters in it, and then it changed to something like residents concerned with the adverse impacts on the neighbors of the turbines. And I'm wondering, was that changed? Or were we actually saving the 5 for the abutters?
Well, I believe they could be considered abutters, but those are folks up there affected by, I think Brent, if I'm not mistaken, brought up at our last meeting, we had some discussion, there may be some folks, we had a public comment, someone down on Route 28A, who had some comment that she was affected by the turbines. So that, where do you come from a neighborhood? Is it directly within the closest proximity or whatever? And again, it's a self-selection process. We would hope that all of the folks who think they would come into that category would come forward and work together to find out who would best represent each other.
My recollection is
Sure.
the word abutter was taken out of it because that's a legal term that might eliminate some people who were very concerned about it but weren't legally abutting the property. And we didn't want to exclude those. I think the idea was we didn't want to restrict it from those people.
I guess maybe, and we probably could read the names into the record of those who have already applied in part of the application process. It would probably, and I would hope that we could post this on the website tomorrow. Stacy Smith did say that she would like to see all of the applications to make sure that each and every one of these applicants actually fit into the category of which they applied, because some of them might not really fit into the category of which they applied. They might fit into another category. So under the residents primarily concerned with the climate action protection plan and reduce the use of fossil fuels, Sean Hunt, Anastasia Koplis, Megan Amsler, and Richard Kohler. The 2 taxpayers primarily concerned with maintaining the fiscal benefits provided by the turbines. Again, we're also looking for recommendations from the Finance Committee. We're waiting on that. 2 of them would be Stephen Fassett and Kathy Driscoll, who applied for them. Again, they applied for these positions under those categories, and Stacy would work with them to see whether that's appropriate. 2 residents with strong empathy for all perspectives, primarily concerned with a fair and effective process that can lead to an amicable outcome that can reunite the town. Jeffrey Oppenheimer, Linda Davis, John Carlton Foss, Judith Fenwick, Christina Raleigh, Samuel McMurtry, and Kenneth Reed. Those are those applicants. The 3 relevant town department directors we've already mentioned, Robert Shea, David Bailey, and Karen Kadera. And I believe we have one volunteer from the board, and I believe maybe a second volunteer, so we can leave it at that. Is there any other action that the board would like to take on this? Any other comments from the board before I open it up to public comment? Okay. Any public comment? Right to the microphone.
My name is Mark Poole, Precinct 6, speaking on behalf of approximately 40 households in Falmouth. This is a statement that they wanted me to deliver. The Selectmen's Turbine process, the Selectmen's Turbine Operation Plan has made what appears to be a helpful offer in turning them off at night. Sadly, Selectmen do not appreciate the gravity of the situation. An agreement between opponents to stop the harm for a certain time is the definition of a truce. A truce is an opportunity for a de-escalation of opposing sides to conduct meaningful dialogue. Continuing negative health assaults during the day and removal of the curtailment does nothing to de-escalate. It serves only to control when harm will resume and increase the severity of the harm caused. The board seemingly believes the timing of the harm upon residents to be acceptable for fiscal stability of the town. Town meeting thought this wrong even before the revised turbine curfews, and affected neighbors certainly believe this is wrong. Entering into a process without the selectmen's commitment that the municipal turbines, will be turned off during consensus building, there is no good faith effort towards meaningful dialogue. And without the commitment to a short-term deadline prior to fall town meeting, selectmen deny the town's legislative branch any opportunity to weigh in on the consensus building progress. For the health, well-being, and the harmony of the community, I and my neighbors hold steadfast to the principles of a truce and a time-sensitive consensus process deadline. I thank you, and if you have any questions, I certainly can try to field them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's appropriate to say that the board said at its last meeting that we have every intention of moving forward as fast and as quickly as possible so that we can come forward with a decision hopefully by fall town meeting. And if it requires a special town meeting, if we're not able to do that, or a special town election, that this board is committed to coming up with a solution to this problem. If we continue to delay the process and not bring everybody to the plate, we'll continue to move forward on this process. I think the board has been clear to this point that we want to get the process started as quickly as possible. It will begin on the 30th of May. We continue to encourage the neighbors to be part of it, but if they are not, we will continue to move forward with it. We hope that we will be able to come up with a solution with or without the neighbors. We are going to move forward to try to come up with a solution for this, for what we have in hand. So are there any other public comments? Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right. Next thing would be approve the minutes of May the 14th meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
The minutes of May 14th hold the minutes of two different executive sessions, the first at the beginning of the minutes and the second one at the last. So I would move approval of the open session minutes and to hold the executive session minutes until a later time.
Okay.
Both sessions.
So would we approve and not release? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay.
So we approve the minutes of the open session and release, and to approve and not release the minutes of the 2 executive sessions included in these minutes. That would be my
Okay,
motion.
I have a
I was just going to say on page 1 of May 14th, the open, like 3-4 paragraphs down, Attorney Robert Ament. There's just no H in his name, it's A-M-E-N-T. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
So I move with those,
Move
with
it,
that
David.
correction.
Is that the second with that addition? With that correction, David?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, next up would be, we would move to the summary of actions. I know that
Did we vote the executive separately, or that?
We have another set of executive session minutes for May 14th.
oh, okay, I thought that was what you made as part of the motion.
No, that was the first set.
Okay.
This is the second set.
So, the executive session minutes from May the 14th?
I move approval and to withhold until a later date and not release.
Not really.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstention.
And then the
One
minutes
abstention.
of May 7th, we also have executive session minutes of May 7th.
We do?
They're not on the agenda, so we take them up
Okay.
separately, okay?
All right.
Okay, we would move to summary of actions. I'll go through them, and then we'll come back to,
They look like this, they don't have quite the heading.
I'd like to hold number 1, approve application for a beach wedding on Bristol Beach on 9/14/12. Number 2, any, okay. Number 3, approve appreciation, application for a beach wedding on Megansett Beach on 6/4. Hold, okay. So we have just one on article number, pardon me, summary of actions number 2. Do I have a motion?
I'll move Article 2, to application for the beach wedding.
I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, under the proclamation, I know this is something near and dear to Mr. Putnam's heart, so I let him read this into the record.
With pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
No problem.
This is a proclamation. Whereas Jacob R.C. Brown of Boy Scout Troop 42 has successfully completed qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And whereas Jacob R.C. Brown met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and his community. And whereas the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank. And whereas Jacob R.C. Brown is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege, now therefore we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim Saturday, June 1, 2012, as Jacob R.C. Brown Day. That is my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. We'll hope to get a representative at that meeting. We'll move back to the application for the beach wedding on Megansett and 6/4.
The only reason I held this is because I happened to be at Town Hall around noon time and learned that we have piping plovers on Minot Beach.
Yeah.
And that may possibly close the beach to public use, so I think we should, in talking with Don Hoffer and whomever else, that we maybe should let this bride and groom know that they may not be able to hold their wedding on Minot
Would
Beach.
that be on the entire beach, or just?
I don't know, I just say, before we approve it, we should probably make, I don't know, Julian, do you want to?
Do you know anything about this?
Well, the note that I received from Don Hoffer was that it involves a single nest that was located on a section of the beach that requires a cordoned-off area about 100 yards in each direction from that location. So it really depends upon exactly where this wedding would be held to determine whether it would become an issue or not.
So maybe we could move it pending approval from Don Hoffer. But at least a notification to the bride that she may have to move.
It's 4 guests.
The number of guests is 4.
What?
The number of guests, I
I
know,
know,
but.
but the restrictions for plovers are very,
Is this Minot?
Fred?
It's not Megansett.
Megansett.
It's Minot Beach, I thought the plovers are at, isn't it?
Oh, this is McGanson.
Yeah. McGanson.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, it's nice to know that we've worked so hard to protect them, there's actually a nest in this
Yes,
town.
I thought, I was looking, I thought McGanson was, Minot was McGanson, so
Okay.
forget it.
Oh, come on
approve it,
now, will ya?
and that's it, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people out there upset with
I
just...
think I may
Just-
need glasses.
If I may, a point of reference that Minot Beach is, if we ended up having plovers on Minot Beach, it is divided, and it might be possible, just to keep thoughts in the future, that it might be possible, as long as the plovers are on one side, to allow activities on the other side.
Well, I move approval of the wedding on McGanson Beach.
Okay, so there's a motion.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to congratulate Rocky Gomes and his colleagues in the Department of Public Works upon the town being named Tree City USA for the 15th consecutive year, and congratulations to the board as well. On Monday and Tuesday of this past week, I was pleased to attend the second annual Smart Cape Summit Conference at the Seacrest Hotel. I know Selectwoman Flynn mentioned that last Monday evening's meeting as well. This, of course, included a comprehensive review and discussion of matters related to the imminent arrival of the Open Cape fiber optic network. Also, this past Thursday afternoon, I was pleased to attend a brief ceremony officially dedicating the availability of a drug disposal kiosk for the public at the Police Department headquarters. Continuing, on Friday morning, I participated in the Falmouth Police Department's annual Police Memorial Service held at the department. And we've already commented on the piping plover nesting that was located by a representative of Mass Audubon, and I'm certain that we'll be hearing more about that. It may require limiting public access until July 1 or later for at least a portion of that beach. Also wanted to advise the board that the Finance Committee at their meeting last week voted to recommend the acceptance of the Fire Department all-terrain vehicle donation from the Falmouth Road Race that was discussed at an earlier meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm certain that'll appear in and can be confirmed in the upcoming minutes of that Finance Committee meeting. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there any additional selectmen's reports?
Oh, you need them? I have nothing.
Nothing here.
Nothing?
Next
Anything you'd like to report the last week, Bill?
Well, last week, I don't remember. Well, we completed the Smarter Cape Cod Summit last week, and there was a very interesting show of hands requested by the Secretary, Biolecki, the Secretary of Economic Development, and apparently even the state has now taken notice that there are fewer and fewer young people that are choosing to stay on Cape Cod and live on Cape Cod. And so he asked for a show of hands as to whether or not the people in the group thought that it would be a really good idea to try to focus on younger people and encourage them and engage them to join committees, become active citizens in their community. And I think it was obviously everybody was going to say, yes, of course we want young people involved in our community. So I think that's something in our strategic planning that we might want to think about, how we might be able to encourage young people in our community. Whether if what we have now doesn't work for younger people, maybe we can think of maybe some groups that could be organized that young people might be more engaged in. And then there was a huge discussion about Open Cape and the Regional Area Network and how that is all going to take place next year and you know, bring jobs to the Cape and so forth. So I think that's a story that will continue.
Okay. Just a reminder to the board, we will not be meeting next Monday on Memorial Day. We'll meet 2 weeks from this evening again.
The parade is starting at 11 o'clock on Monday?
I have not received...
I don't have that time. We'll get that out to the board.
10. It's usually 10
With
a.m.
information.
And sometimes there's a parade and sometimes there isn't, so you may look, if there is, it would start at 9:30 or 9:45 from the green. But there'll be something in the paper, I'm sure. They'll let us know.
we'll ask that the office send out an email to everybody, making sure that we're able to know. Okay? Do I have anything else? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Good job.
Cavosa Excavating is a family-owned and operated company specializing in the installation of Title V septic systems. Cavosa Excavating is one of the largest septic system installers on Cape Cod. Whether it's upgrading your current system or installing a whole new system, Cavosa Excavating can do the job. Cavosa Excavating, 508-563-5530.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.